Enough to knock me out, but I'm still holding the throne. You never know till it's over. So pretty it hurts, just beware of the thorns.
Hello YouTube. Today I'd like to talk about Kevin. You know, I told you about him before and about his case and everything, how I thought he was innocent. But this time I want to talk about some of the time we spent together. So if you're new, subscribe. If you like prison content, share. And let's get into this. I met Kevin at the Walls. First time I met him. And I'd seen him around, but the first time I talked to him, he came into the hobbycraft room and he seen me and another guy wrestling. And this other guy was getting kind of upset because I was getting the best of him. And so the guy reaches down and grabs my stuff, you know. And Kevin said, "Hey, you guys need to knock it out. You might want to have kids one of these days." So anyway, we get up. I get to talking to him, you know, we get to talking. We're about the same age. I think he's a year older than I am. And so over time, I just talked to him a little bit, you know, here and there. And then I got transferred to Farmington. And not long after, I think about a year or so later, he gets transferred down there. We get put in cell mood, get moved in the cell together. We got to fill out these moving passes. And we clicked, you know. Now, there's a lot of people, you can't trust too many people in prison. And the ones you do, you know, usually you don't, it's hard to explain. You get close to them, but you're not like real close. People that you may depend on in prison, but you wouldn't on the outside, you know. But Kevin was like a brother. He and I became like brothers. I got to know everything about him, his family. He got to know everything about mine. You know, we pretty much knew what the other one was thinking a lot of times, you know. If he had a problem on the yard, I had a problem on the yard. I'll find out later if he was wrong or not. You know, if I had a problem, he had a problem. That's just the way it was, you know. And that is, you don't see that very often. But anyway, one of the stories I already told, but I'll tell again, will show you that the trust that we had with one another. So I turned into my laundry bag because it got ripped, you know. So they sent me this huge laundry bag. This thing was, it was for the ones where they do the hospitals, you know, do the laundry for the hospitals in the free world. But Kevin gets talking to me, and he says, "I bet you can't get in it." And he just kind of laughed. Now I know if I get in this thing, I can, you know, you can get in it, but you're not going to be standing up all the way. And I know if I get in it, he's going to close the bag on me. I know this. And I thought, well, I'll go along with it. So I get in this bag. Sure enough, he ties it and he's laughing and everything. And so what I didn't know was that he was going to keep me there for a while. You know, I thought he'd only keep me in there like 5 minutes or so and let me out. Well, it was a while. He even did it during the count. Now, on count, you have to be standing with your lights on. And I told him, I said, it's count time. You got to let me out, you know. He he says, no, I ain't going to, you know. I said, man, you might get rolled up, you know. And so but he helps me get up, and I'm standing like kind of hunched over position. The guards came by counting, and they stopped and they looked. They said, "What the?" And we're laughing, you know. And one of them says, "Sadio, you all right?" I said, "Yeah." You you need anything? I said, "I need out of this bag." And they just went on. And so I tell Kevin, I said, I gotta go to supper. You know, I gotta go eat. Now we had already talked earlier that day about making a meal because the supper was bad. He goes, you ain't gonna eat that stuff. You're just wanting to get out of the bag. He said, I'll make you something. I said, we're just going in on it together. You know, we do these things together. He says, no, 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 I got it. And so then it's getting close to time for him to open the doors for Rick. And he didn't want me in the bag, you know, with the open wing, you know. Makes you very vulnerable. So he goes ahead and lets me out. And but that was the trust we had, you know. And if it'd been the other way around, I would have done the same thing, you know. I might not have kept him in there as long as he kept me in there, but I would have done the same thing. And he knew when he said, "Bet you can't get in the bag," that I would do it just to, you know, we're just having fun. But one time he gets into with a bunch of people in the yard. Uh, I'm just going to say they was all wearing blue. And over a gay guy. I didn't know this at the time. These guys were, I don't know if they was picking on him or trying to press him or what, but Kevin felt the need for some reason to help this guy. And you know, I come out in the yard and I seen them all around him and I knew something was going on. So I went over there and they tell me this doesn't concern you. And I said, well, that's my partner. It does concern me. And, I mean, we were outnumbered. And so they said, well, we got to honor that, you know. But anyway, another guy we know that knew these guys comes up. He's a black guy. His name's uh, Vic Brooks or Victor Brooks or something like that. We just called him Vic. Shout out to him, man. That was so he talks to him. Anyway, that all gets squashed, and I asked Kevin what this is about, and he told me, and I was livid. I was mad. It's one of the few times I've really been mad at him, and he said, "Well, if you seen somebody on your yard that was getting jumped, wouldn't you help them?" I said, "Yes, but it depends on the situation, Kevin." I said, and that guy ran off, went back to the housing unit. I said, you know, you ain't supposed to stay away from these boys, you know, uh, no matter what. You know this. You know, don't get involved with them. Don't come to their aid. None of that. And I mean, it's just a bad situation. But that was one out of two times that I was mad at him. The second time that I got mad at him, um, well, he kind of got mad at me too. It was it was just a thing that we was on a lockdown. And I don't know if you all know this, but when you're on a lockdown in a crowded cell, you got a confined area, and they're bringing food to you. I mean, you just get tired of seeing one another. So it was one of those things where, the littlest thing was aggravating us with each other. And when the argument started, I mean, it was a bad argument. We finally just stopped, and we just looking at one another. And Kevin says, "Man," he says, "this lockdown's getting to us." He says, "We can't let this stuff get to us." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And so that was it. And then soon we came off of lockdown. Everything was good again. But unless you've been on a lockdown, and I know there's ex-cons watching this, and they know what I'm talking about. It's just the littlest thing. I mean, it can be something that never bothered you before, but now because you're on a lockdown, the slightest sound he makes is just irritating. Stop breathing, but don't move. You know, that type of thing. And but that was the two times that we kind of bumped heads, but it was nothing serious. Sometimes if you're in a cell with somebody and you guys get to arguing, it could come bad. I mean, it can come to one of y'all getting killed. But with he and I, it would never come to that. It was just arguments. So he had me hooking. Well, I had a friend I was writing, and he had me hook me. She had a friend, and we got them both to write one another. He wanted somebody to write, so got him somebody to write, and they would come up on visits sometimes. They came all the way from California, and I remember on one visit, after the visit, there was this guard, a little short guard. I can't remember his name, but this guy, he hated uh, people in prison, and he hated being short. He had a short man complex, and so he hit on the girl that Kevin was writing and seeing, and we didn't know this until later. But when we was in the dress out, she he says, "So where do these women come from that you guys are seeing? Where they live?" And Kevin says, "I don't think it's any of your business where they live, but I can tell you what state, and it's California." And he goes, "I don't understand why two women would come out, all the way out to Missouri to see, guys in prison. It doesn't make any sense to me." So we leave, you know, and we're just shaking our heads. Man, this dude, he's got a problem. Another time we was on a visit. I don't know if it's done in any other states, and it used to not be done in this state, but they started having Family Guy, at least in some of the prisons, uh, Family Day for some of the officers and the staff. So we went on a visit. And when we went on a visit, there's everybody running around on the yard. This was in Farmington Correctional Center, and everybody was running around on the yard, working out, running laps, whatever. So we went to visit, and when we left the visit, it was something like a Twilight Zone. The sky was black, low hanging clouds. It's like it's going to start raining anytime. Nobody to be seen. Nobody. I mean, we did not see one single person. It was quiet. And Kevin even said, We entered the twilight zone. He goes, I wonder what's going on. So as we're walking back, they got this booth for kind of looks like a phone booth, you know, but officers hung out in it. And so we get up there, and there was an officer in there, guard. And Kevin says, "Hey, can you tell us what's going on? Why's the yard closed? You know?" He goes, "It's family day. Go back to your housing unit." Went back to our housing unit, and in the housing unit, they just haven't letting people out in the wing and stuff. Now, this family day, I disagree with completely. I mean, I don't see the purpose in it. But what they do is they bring officers and staff and stuff, bring their families to the prison, and they have little barbecues and stuff. You know, and this time it was on the other side, so we didn't see it. We didn't know what was going on. But they bring their families in. So while they do that, they gotta lock everybody else down. You know, they gotta lock the prison down. I don't understand it. You know, you're going to work with your husband or your wife or whatever, and having a barbecue while everybody else is, you know, while the prison population is locked down. What is the purpose of it? Why would you want to do that in a prison anyway? But I've seen it a few times, like 2 times at Farmington. I've seen it once, I think, at Licking, but they don't seem to do it very often. But I just don't agree with it. Anyway, Kevin gets transferred from Bowling Green. They just up and transferred him, I guess, because they needed people at Bowling Green. And then I told you a few years later, it wasn't even a few years, just a couple, I believe. I got that number 3, and they sent me to Bowling Green. Well, they sent me to Potosi first, and I did like a year in a hole, and then from Potosi they sent me to Bowling Green, and we became cellies again. But when I get there, it is just circumstance that they put us in the same wing, the same housing unit, same wing, and all we had to do is, you know, move in together. But when I get there, other prisons were different. You know, you locked you didn't have a key to your door or anything, so this was kind of different to me, you know. And so Kevin was explaining to me everything, and I said, I don't know. This is. He said, well, if you lose that key, it's $100. You know, they're going to charge you. But anyway, we moved in, and one day, it was just like a couple of days after we moved in, he and I were wrestling. We used to do this all the time, just wrestle and throw each other around the cell. And the back wall by the window, I grabbed him, and we kind of fell into that wall, you know, and his back hits it. And he said, "Oh man," he said, "Stop." And he's holding his upper chest, you know. So what's wrong? He goes, "I think you broke my collarbone." I did not break his collarbone. Uh, I mean, he didn't go to the doctor or anything over it. I mean, if I broke his collarbone, he'd been in a lot more pain, I believe. But to this day, he tells me that I broke his collarbone. I'm sure that it was hurt, but I don't think it was broken. So from there, I get transferred to Licking because they raised a bunch of people. If you hadn't been there for 2 years or longer, They raised your. I mean, two people that were 2 years and longer got to stay. People under 2 years got their level raised and they was transferred to licking. Well, because they was told they had to fill that prison up with level fives. Well, the people that was grandfathered and got to stay, they get two write-ups. They get transferred there. I guess I was there 6 years. Yeah, it was 6 years. I got there in licking in 2003, and in 2009, here comes Kevin, and he'd gotten a couple of write-ups. One of them he said he was good for, and one of them he wasn't good for. And that's the way it is, People get write-ups that they're not good for all the time. It's not always the guard who writes them up's fault. I mean, it's sometimes just circumstances. But sometimes it is the guard's fault. Sometimes they just got it out for you. But that's neither here or there. He ends up there, and we're in 5 and 6 house was 5 and 6 house was two of the worst houses, and we was in 5 house. 4 house was pretty bad too, but they'd made 3 house honor house, and Kevin wants to try to get moved down there to the honor house, and I said, man, we're never gonna make it down there. All these write-ups and stuff, you had to be so many months write-up free. Well, I don't know how, and Kevin is part of the reason I think I didn't get any write-ups because I do things. If somebody like mouths off to me, I'm gonna jump the gun, and a lot of different things like that, that I think he helped me stay write-up free for long enough. Excuse me. Although a couple times he almost got one. Anyway, we get down there to the honor house. It's completely different down there. I liked it, and I didn't like it. And I'll tell you why. I liked it because you could relax a little bit more. It was less things going on. You didn't have to. You should always keep your guard up, but I mean, you could relax a little bit. And I had a dog program down there, so we eventually got into the dog program. But the reason I didn't like it is because there was a lot of complainers down there, whiners. Um, these people got into honor house and they still thought that they should get more. This is the honor house. We need this, we need that, and then they'd tell them, no, you knew when you signed up to come down here what the criteria was, what you was allowed to have, the privileges and all this and that, and now you want even more. And that, I couldn't believe these people were doing that. I mean, for crying out loud, you're in prison. What do you think this is? But it was nice. They had a washing machine and drying machines down there, and other things. You got more recreation, time on the yard and stuff. But Kevin and I was cellies there until I got a release date, and then I got transferred to Algola because my level dropped. But when the last time I went for parole, I went up there, and I mean, I just had this feeling I was going to get a date. The other times I didn't. I had my hopes up, but that's all you can have is your hopes up, but you expect the worst. So I come back and I said, I really feel good about this, Kevin. I think they're going to give me a date. He goes, oh man, dog. You know how it goes. You got to hope for the best, but expect the worst. I said, I know that. He said, man, I don't want you to get your expectations up and then it be dashed. And I said, I know. And I said, but I really have a good feeling about this. And one day is about 4 or 5 weeks later. They just called lockdown. And I just closed the door when they popped the door. And they said, Sidell, report to the caseworker's office. So I go to the caseworker's office. IPO was standing there right inside the caseworker's door. And he goes, this is fresh off the press. Thought you'd like to read it. I wanted to give it to you as soon as possible. And it told me, he said, you've been scheduled for release from confinement on November 16th, 2016. November the 18th, 2016. And I just stared at it, And I went back and I told Kevin. He gets up, It's one of these prison things where you just kind of clap hands and then his shoulders goes in, But he, before they lowered my level and transferred me out of there, he told me something that I've never forgot. He says, man, I'm glad you're leaving, but I don't want to see you leave. If you've, it may be hard to understand for people that's never been in prison. What he was saying was, he's glad I got a date. He's glad I'm getting out.